Hello everybody and welcome to episode 19 of the Contest Realm podcast. As all you know, we are available on SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and of course we have the YouTube playlist. And as well on YouTube I'll try and put out some time codes where I can for people to kind of jump to certain things because there are some incredibly hot topics. Just a note from myself and Dan is whatever you're doing at the moment, regardless of what is going on in the current climate, is to stay safe. Whatever you're doing, stay safe. Keep your distance because of what's going on. Some countries are spiking with the global pandemic. So just a note from us is stay safe, whatever you are doing. And anyway, and on that note, we're going to get into this. Obviously, that's just a little bit of a note from me and Dan on stuff going on currently. But we have very important things to discuss with Marvel Contest of Champions. And obviously I'm going to introduce Dan, but first and foremost, make sure that you go to www.frontlinemcoc.home.blog. Make sure that you have it bookmarked. You can make it your homepage, so when you log on, you get to see all the updated information, some guides, and some other things that are helpful to your time and progression. Whether or not you're interested in Marvel Contest of Champions or Marvel Realm, he's got you covered. So welcome, Dan. Thanks very much for joining me, as always.
Hey, Rich. Good to talk to you. It has been quite a week, my friend.
Yeah.
Yep.
In-game, globally.
Game. Yeah, just everything.
Yeah.
A whole everything.
We're gonna break this. Well, we're gonna try and break this show up into talking about stuff that's coming on in the next week or so with a new event, and as well the burning topic, which is going to be talking about this boycott, so to speak. We're going to take. And we have to be very careful. Myself and Dan have had to spend a lot of time preparing for this, as we want to make sure that we cover all bases, cover all information, and give this as much service as possible to both sides, and as well, you know, just looking at the general scheme of things. But Dan, next month does actually look to be quite fun.
It definitely has the potential. There's a couple things that make me nervous and are going to be reward dependent, but I'm excited about the champions. First off,
yeah.
You know, have we decided? Have we come to a consensus on whether it's Tigra or Tigra? In which camp do you fall?
I'm Tigra.
Tigra.
As in like around the neck, tie, and then Gra, as in Mardi Gras.
Yeah. See, I always read it as Tigra, but Tigra makes much more sense considering, you know, what she is and what she looks like. I
haven't watched the deep dive yet because I was going to put it as part of Marvel Contest of Champions news for Monday. But what are they pronouncing it as?
Dave says Tigra and Kabam John says Tigra.
I don't know. Like maybe it's a Canadian thing. Hey, what's that Tigra, isn't it? Hey.
That's what, John was explaining what Tigra was all about.
I love it. Sorry to anybody from Kabam that are watching that are Canadian. Hey, they're making fun of us on the show, eh? To be honest, my Canadian turns too much like Native American. Hey, make Marvel Contest of Champions in Canada, eh?
Oh, Rich.
I know, it's terrible, isn't it? Absolutely awful. But yes, the champions do look good. I like some of the mechanics. I know that some people have said otherwise. I think people like the miss ability, which, let's face it, other champions do have the miss ability. But it seems more, I don't know, I like the way that you kind of like, it's Charge of the Heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, like that seems like it could be useful, right? Because if you're, if you're trying to bait a special that you know you can't dodge, you can... I feel like you're going to have some time to work that in. It's going to be very interesting to see how usable it is.
Yeah.
There's certainly, as I was running Act 6.3.4 this morning and taking a ton of chip damage from a Punisher, I was thinking how convenient would it be to hold heavy and have those Punisher bullets fly by and not take 15% of my health every time I'm baiting a special from this dude.
Absolutely. So, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. And I like, you know, I generally like Mystics. It seems like she's got a little bit of a more sustainable Mephisto-like a feature where she can keep the buffs from proccing. So that could be really cool. They've spun it so many different ways with Mojo and Longshot and Sorcerer Supreme and now Tigra.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how do you want to stop these buffs? Do you want to stop permanent buffs? Do you want to stop buffs that expire? Do you just want to keep the buffs from showing up at all? So Mystics are the Mystic class is really having a good year. They're probably far and away having the best year of any class so far.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be some pushes towards I don't know, skills got kind of a boost, but I like what's happening with Mystic, especially with Mystics being so much a problem over the last couple of years. So it's good to see a ramp up. Hitmonkey, I'm unsure about, but to be honest, is that the first month I'm looking forward to both champions based on what they can do.
Right.
Depends on the bleed damage side of things with Hitmonkey. Depends on how easier it is to get into those different types of what they called.
It's different like attack modes.
Yeah, I can't remember what they're called. Schemes. Are they schemes? I can't remember what
schemes, are they phases, are they
whatever.
I'm looking at the spotlight right now, but it's
I'm sure we'll find schemes. Is it schemes?
Combat modes.
Oh, combat modes. Ew.
He has Assassin's Cunning, which lets him strike evasion opponents and improves his bleed damage, and then Primal Rage, which lets him ignore armor and resistance and inflicts disorient. So got the two different modes. There's a lot of, I think we're seeing this now a lot, right? Like sort of the different modes. We saw that with Storm Pyramid X. It's like, all right, what do you want the champion to be able to do and switch it up? And sometimes it's helpful and sometimes it's just too much to manage, but he looks cool. Like sometimes they get so these wackier characters like Hitmonkey, they just have a lot of fun with the animations. So that's what I'm hoping for this guy.
Yeah, that's good. Next month with a lot of the return of those randomizers and a randomizer. It's not MODOK Labs. We're not in MODOK Labs anymore. We are on an island. But still the same premise is that we will go against stuff that's buffs. We can now delete the buffs, which is something new that Kabam have added.
I like that. I can't wait to delete Coward every time it shows up.
Yep. But the availability, I think, is going to be the next thing. It's like, well, if you use the delete a buff once, are you able to delete it? X amount of times. Obviously, the way that we've had interactions before, you only get one. I guess one delete for, say, one quest that you're in. So there's 5 fights. One of those fights you'll be able to delete the buffs. So whether or not you rough it out to the final boss and then delete his buffs will be a new thing. By the way, wrestling fans, I will be breaking out the delete chants from those that are Matt Hardy fans. So you'll just see me go delete all the time when it comes to that. But I think the gift shop is the thing that has excited me. For several reasons. I mean, it's a case that we've got. It's nice to see these shops come back because it's nice to kind of go like, oh, I've got a currency and I can spend it. They've taken away the ability to grab them. Well, you can get them from solo events, or a special type of solo event with the. Actually, no, I'm getting so confused this because there's a solo event, there's solo objectives that you can get coins in. So that's going to be, it's a little different because before, when it used to be able to get rank rewards and get like a whole lot more of a currency, I want to say, like the Infinity Dust, Valor times, that you were able to buy more effectively. But there seems to be a cap on certain things. The revives, how do you feel about that? Revives in a store for once.
Yeah, I think I just glossed over that, and then when I mentioned it, I definitely got some feedback from some of the progressing players that were like, "Oh, revives! This is going to be so great because I'm trying to get uncollected, and I really need to stock up." So it's nice that there's going to be things for people at different levels, like. Some people want the catalyst. Some people really want those revives and potions because they're about to make a push. Or if you're maybe you're at the higher end and you're looking to push some prestige, they're talking about awakening gems and signature stones. And that part has me very curious. Are we going to be able to pick our class? Is it going to be random? Is it going to be generic? Depending on how much choice we have there could be some major value for players if they can pick their class or if things are generic.
Oh yeah, imagine like that. You're going like, okay, so I've got, let's say you can get theoretically about, I don't know, 50 kabam, maybe about 30 at most 5-star signature stones. You could specify what you get it into. Say you've got a Captain America and a Beardo, and let's just say as well the awakening gem, I don't know if the awakening gem is going to be, you can choose, or if it's going to be generic, or is it going to be crystal. More than likely crystal, but let's face it, the rifts were kind of fair with you getting, with the chronometer, getting what you wanted. So I don't know. I don't want to say that. I don't want to play down Kabam's efforts to create something that seems to be amazing, because obviously chronometers last month, and obviously against the scheme of what's going on currently with the game, that they would or wouldn't do it. But it would be great to say you've got a Beardo, you awakened him, you bashed in a load of signatures, or any other champion, so to speak, that is a key champion for your roster. So again, this could be another month that is helpful to the player.
Yeah, I mean that would make me feel great. I mean, right now I am on the hunt for every mutant Sig Stone I can find, because I'm trying to get my Namor to Sig 200.
Nice.
And that helps his usability in game and would boost my prestige. So that's the mission I'm on. So I'm certainly hoping that they're not random and that there's a significant quantity, because that's the most interesting item in the game for me right now.
Yeah. Okay, the next thing that Kabam did was they changed the Alliance ticketing system.
Yes.
I haven't because I'm going to be doing this for a story on tomorrow's Marvel Contest Champions news. I haven't really kept up to date with what's been going on it from a change point. I don't know if you want to fill me in a little bit with that.
Yeah. So basically, the system's going to launch as it was originally reported. The next AQ cycle that begins in a few days, that's going to be free. And then on June 10th, that's when AQ tickets go into effect. And basically, it's 30 tickets for map 7, and it's 15 tickets for map 6 per player per day. Sometime in August, they're going to update that so that you can split. You'll be required to split the cost of the maps you open among the different summoners in your group. So that's going to prevent the map 7 players from, say, if your alliance runs 766, in the current setup, the map 7 players have to donate double because of their ticket cost what the map 6 players do. And if you're running 655, the map 6 players pay to play AQ, and the map 5 players play for free but get better rewards. So we're trying, it looks like what they're trying to do is adjust that, right? So that it would be an even split. So for example, if you're an alliance like mine that's going to run 766 maybe 1 or 2 days a week, currently the map 7 folks have to pay 30 tickets that day. The map 6 players pay 15 that day, but it's going to be 20 after the update goes live sometime in August. But it's going to take them a while to build the fix after there was a bit of community outcry over the subject. So I wish it's one of those things that they had taken into account when designing it. But I do think they responded appropriately once people raised the issue on the forums.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, this is one of these problems that we raised last week, or we talked about last week. The idea that some of the stuff that I don't know if, in order to kind of combat the short-term roadmap, and obviously with the stuff being, I don't know, I wouldn't say knee-jerk reaction, stuff that maybe was being built for the game in about a few months ago, thinking, right, okay, for the time being, let's push this out, and obviously it doesn't take into consideration and the kind of like, well, state of these kind of things. And that's the thing, is that you don't really find this stuff out once you kind of put it out there and get people to give feedback on it. So that's positive. That's
yeah, it's unfortunate for alliances that are going to have to deal with this for a couple months, but I'm still hopeful that they're going to find a way to mitigate the pain point for those alliances. In the meantime, maybe there'll be some extra opportunities to earn some tickets or something like that along the way.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would like to see alliance. We're very different with what we'd like to see from what an alliance quest would be. I know you like the regularity of this, and yeah, I do agree. I like it as well. I obviously would know where I stood if I decided to leave my alliance for a month and then come back the month after, because I wanted a month off to focus on X, Y, or Z. But I do kind of like think towards if something like this is in the future roadmap that Kabam could look into, and just make it just a lot more kind of easier. Maybe look at a lot of the stuff that's interweaved into the particular mode. But that, I think, is a discussion for when we get that response back from Kabam. And that's actually the next topic, is that we are potentially, and I use the word potentially because Kabam have said in the post, it's one of the things that we're going to probably come back to and mention, is early June, which could be tomorrow through to the 5th of June, or at its latest the 12th of June, responding back to the general feedback, which is going to be the extensive issues that players experience wherever they are in the game. How I'm still kind of like thinking this is crazy that we've had to come to this point where there's had to be such a massive feedback loop.
I agree. It's like, why did it take this long to shake them out of their complacency? I think we talked about it before, but it's kind of like the death by 1,000 paper cuts thing. It's if you look at anyone's list of what could be improved in the game, there's a lot of bullet points on everybody's list right now.
Yeah.
It's tough for me that 3 years after 12.0 and all of that, in some way we're kind of back where we started.
Yeah.
Where it took this sort of seismic moment, which in this case was really Seaton releasing that video and stepping back from Omni to shake everyone up, and it just unleashed all this feedback. And I think that's just because if you look at 12.0, that was an update that, there was clear changes happening to the meta champs at the time, where this, it was sort of like, it's like, all right, well, it's another month. They haven't given us Cavalier difficulty. They haven't updated solo objectives. It's sort of that. It's like, okay, it's harder to get wound up like that in sort of one moment.
Yeah.
Until it really reaches a breaking point, which is what happened a couple weeks ago, and we've been dealing with the fallout ever since.
Yeah. I've done our podcast in a way that I do think this was a good point to lead us into the talk points of the boycott. So we're just going to cover two things from the next month and the month after, just quickly before we get into the boycott, because I think that's kind of like the correct lead-off point. So the first thing being in June, MODOK contracts, and I don't know, what are you feeling about this? Do you feel that this is going to be, I've put Baron's War objectives or target ops from this month. I'm not quite sure.
It looks like the same thing as this month.
Yeah.
To me, it says defeating the champions listed in the special objective. So maybe it's more than one champion. Maybe it's not just like, okay, find Black Widow Deadly Origin and beat her once. Maybe it's a group of champions with a tag or something like that. I'm not really sure, but it seems pretty clear that you're gonna, the contract comes out, and there's gonna be a target. So that's how I read it.
Yeah.
It's really just how many gold coins do we get?
That is a very good point, because I think that'll be the next thing to focus on, the pricing scheme of of the coins.
Yep.
Which usually, I mean, I would assume that's going to come out either Monday or Tuesday. I'd hope it doesn't come out on Wednesday because it's too kind of close, but I suppose people can understand that. If it goes live...
There's so many questions about the side. The side quests always generate so many questions. I feel like everyone in the content creator community for MCOC always has to break it down. Like, okay, all right, here's the 15 steps of the latest side quest. And it's like, do this, then do that. All right, so go in and look, and then buy the chronometer.
This is how I build a lot of my early content for the month. It's I literally make about, I don't know, 3 videos, unless it's 5-star Scarlet Witch, and then it's, I'm talking like double figures here.
How many? We just broke the streak. We were doing so good.
I know. We're one day, folks.
This
one day
is without 5-star Scarlet Witch talk.
Jesus Christ! If that ever happens, then well, I don't know. I'll eat my hat.
Maybe that's how they get everyone back on their side. You come out tomorrow. 1 p.m. Eastern, I guess that's like 6 p.m. your time when all the offers come out. Is just 5-star Scarlet Witch.
I think it'd be good timing to go like, oh, they finally released it, but bad timing because I think players were going to go like, oh, Kabam are out for money. It's all about money and greed.
It'd be such a great troll move.
Yeah, exactly. It's best and worst timing. I
appreciate it.
Yeah,
maybe we don't. Maybe they don't play that card right now.
No, exactly. Keep that hidden for a while. Once this kind of announcement's done in the next 2 weeks, we'll be fine. Okay, July, we'll see an autocomplete system coming in, which has got people excited. It's got me excited, but I do feel it's cool. Yeah, I feel it's going to be focused more on like the easier content, but I don't know how they will do it from an exploration point. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, as someone who actually does auto fight 100% of beginner, and normal and heroic, I don't think that's what it would be, but it would be pretty cool if I could just pop in a team and it says, okay, your team's got a high enough PI to auto complete this.
Yeah.
Push one button and it's done. Like that would be awesome.
Yeah. That's a quality of life improvement one needs.
Right, exactly. Like that would be cool because I'm gonna do it anyway. I want the units. I mean, there's enough energy. I am 100% all 5 levels of the event quest for this month without the sigil.
Wow.
And I've been that way for a few days. So like, there's just so much. There was so much extra energy this month. It wasn't even like stressful.
So no,
I would like that.
I haven't bought my sigil or my unit deal this month so far.
I bought the unit deal, but I'm already over. I'm already at 15K.
Oh,
for July 4th. So I'm sitting pretty. Yeah, someone's ready. You gotta get your grind on, Rich.
Yeah,
you gotta be ready for the big deals.
Yeah, I'm too busy outside. Like, a lot of the time, I kind of find myself doing it weekends. Like I did some gardening. I just been out. Like I did a video call with my extended family.
Nice.
And gardening. My potatoes are coming up lovely. I got a lovely set of tatties. I've got as well some straws coming through. Lovely strawberries. So yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm digging life, and I'm playing
just having fun, not hitting arena milestones.
Yeah, I should be doing that. I need to kind of like kick my ass into gear. I've been doing a lot of kind of like when I've been live streaming. I've been trying to break it up. I've been doing like a little bit of MCOC and a little bit of Call of Duty Warzone, which would be nice to mix it up. But I do need to get a massive push in arena and an MCOC. So maybe that's to come in June. I'm just waiting for this message. I think a good kind of link point is positivity about the game, because we've had a week where there's been talk of boycotts. There's been kind of still waiting for Kabam to address what they plan to do in the future, and that kind of reassurance, that kind of renewing of faith that needs to be established, I think, for me personally, my own personal feelings, but I need to still play stuff with the game. And I think that's a good point to lead us into. And we're going to try the best as we can to kind of like talk about everything. And we've kind of like budgeted a good amount of time now. I'm just looking at the time, say it's 25 minutes. We've talked about a lot of the next month stuff, but where do we start with this, Dan?
With the boycott, the dreaded B word, right? That just seems to trigger so many people is there is a boycott going on, and however you feel about it, there is a segment of the community that feels like this is their best resort to get Kabam to listen and to get some changes in the game. So I know you've been speaking with Captain Picard. I've been monitoring their line chat. I spoke with Maladar earlier this week.
Yeah.
So just trying to get some information about where they're coming from, what they're trying to accomplish, what their goals and message is, so that we could give them a fair shake when we're discussing this. But I think really what's the overarching theme of this all, it always, for everybody, whether you're in the camp of I want to see what Kabam's going to say with this roadmap, or whether you say, all right, I need to boycott, I'm not going to wait for this roadmap, I want to put pressure on them now. It all comes back to communication with Kabam, which is something that we've been talking about for quite a few episodes now. Is do you trust Kabam to have heard us, to come up with solutions, to listen to feedback from the community? And how you feel about that, I think in a lot of ways determines where you fall on this issue.
Yeah, the thing is with games, gaming, when it comes to developer communication, some games will not even entertain anything that their player base says. I'm just going to bring a few examples to the table recently. Okay, let's bring in Marvel Avengers to the game that was massively promoted. Initially, people were like, the way that the characters look are trash. And then it's a case they got so much backlash that the developer said, right, okay, we've heard you, and we'll change the way that a lot of the characters look. And as well, because they had this kind of, this idea that, okay, well, if we've got Tony Stark, it must look like Robert Downey Jr. If we've got Captain America, it must look like Chris Evans. Yeah. That kind of thought in their head. And I'm not saying it's exactly the same point, but it's a case on communication and developers listening. Kabam have done well to a degree when they've listened to certain things, but only when they've been pushed to a point or an unexpected choke point that the player base has had, and then gone, oh, the players must experience something that we don't see. And that's that element of understanding that I think they're still learning that idea.
Yeah, I think so. I think the Alliance Quest ticket cost issue is a perfect illustration of that.
Yeah.
Because clearly how alliances handle donations in mixed map AQ was missed, right?
Yeah.
They didn't account for that. And by the time that it was announced, and everyone gave all the feedback, so, all right, okay, we missed something, we're going to fix it, but it's going to take 2 months to build the fix. And I don't know how long it takes to develop the games and whether that's reasonable or not, but the fact is it's going to take 2 months. And if a group of players like the CCP had been involved earlier and because we did give that feedback as soon as we saw it. So it's like we did, I know I personally gave the feedback. I know a lot of others did in the CCP. It's like, hey, this is going to be a problem for alliances that don't all play the same map in each battle group. We'd really like to see this fixed. And then, of course, once it went live to the community said the exact same thing. But there wasn't time enough to react to the fix because the communication wasn't done early enough, right? Like the communication was the announcement. And there was this, there was something that got missed, but there wasn't enough time to fix it. To make everyone happy, which is unfortunate.
This is the problem, I think, from the offset. When we've talked about in the podcast so far, we talked about the idea that a lot of this content had been created prior to a lot of stuff going on, like maybe months in the making.
And for sure. Had to be.
The problem with that, again, is just... things change in game. Like maybe you could have said, right, well, Kabam should have stopped developing that stuff when, or kind of like just gone, right, well, look, players are saying this, this, and this. Why don't, instead of us not, but we had an idea to bring this to the forefront. We're not going to bring this to the forefront or bring this to the game. We'll now put everything, go back to the drawing board. Was it too soon to kind of like to go, we're going to react? Things I don't know. I'm guessing what Kabam are doing, whether or not they reacted to the general feedback and went, do you know what? We've got this that we've built for the game. We've developed it. Should we now bring this, boom, right to the forefront, and then it's just going to put it into the game, rather than going, oh, do you know what? We should just like scrap this and start from fresh, start again. I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like with book 2, I mean that seems like a pretty clear scrap, right? Like that thing is supposedly getting totally overhauled, and the timeline was pushed back to allow for variant 5 to be released earlier. So I think that's one of the things that clearly was impacted by feedback. I think the other things you talk of, like Alliance Quest tickets, I think that was probably already in the build and it was ready to go, and certain other stuff like the Alliance officer tools, like that's something that people have been asking for a long time, right? The ability to assign battle groups.
Yeah.
So I think they're not gonna scrap something that's close to completion based on where it is in the release cycle that is helpful just because other stuff that is also helpful has been asked for. Like it's they're trying to solve as many problems as they can, but it is tricky, right? Like I think I sent you these 3 points, right? And I think this kind of for me sums up the current situation in the game today and how we got to where we got to with the breaking point and why it's going to be tough moving forward. And number 1 is Kabam grades their communication significantly higher than the community does, right? There's a delta between the grade that Kabam gives themselves and the grade that the community gives themselves. And I think that boils down to the fact that if you work at Kabam, you're going to give yourself points, so to speak, for doing things you hadn't been doing or doing them in a way that you hadn't been doing before, right? Like things, some of that's with the CCP, some of that's getting on live streams more, answering more questions in the forum, Twitter. You're gonna be like, wow, we didn't used to do XYZ and now we do. So we're definitely communicating better, right? They're looking at the action.
Yeah,
of communicating, right?
There's a good example of what you said of this when. Do you remember the? I'm going to guess the day and say there was a massive down day. I don't know if it was the 8th of November or there was another day.
I know what you're talking about because it was my first day in the CCP. It was a heck of a day to be allowed into the server. I got in like an hour before the game crashed. And we had to, that was the one that led to the cancellation of that Alliance War season.
Yeah.
That was a doozy.
But Kabam spent a lot of time on the forums chatting with people. I mean, it wasn't about like the state of Act 6 or it wasn't a case of the state of like problems, but there were problems actually discussed in it.
Yeah, no, they were out there and talking.
Yeah.
I thought they handled that well.
And it's like there's that kind of like the difference with it where when I spoke to Captain Picard in the Boycott, he was talking about and I mentioned it as a kind of a thing in Marvel Contest Champions News, where Kabam John was playing on stream with Josh Soleil. The problem is everybody in that live chat was not talking about, say, Red Guardian. Obviously, they were trashing Josh Soleil on the way he played, and that's just how the community sometimes reacts. And
Josh.
Yeah, sorry, Josh.
We love you.
We love you. But the fact is, people were talking about a lot of the state of affairs with the game, and obviously that came about at the time, at the wrong time, and well, it was the wrong time. Because obviously people weren't focusing on Red Guardian and stuff with the playability. They were talking about what's going on with Act 6, with player concerns.
Yeah.
But the idea would be that if Kabam had a opportunity with that Marvel Contest Champions YouTube channel to have a 1 week Ask the Developer. I know saying that out there, I know that there'll probably be somebody from Kabam or somebody in the community that will go, oh, well, it's going to be just like people are going to throw ridiculous things. They're going to be trollish. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. Well, if there's a one question go thing, if there's, you know, not pre-approved, well, kind of pre-approved questions, say if like 50 questions being answered in a 2-minute bracket for an hour, that's an hour's out of like 1 member, 2 members of Kabam's time. It's something.
Yeah, it's something, but I think it gets back to how Kabam views valuable communication and how the community does, because from Kabam's point of view, they might say, hey, well, we just did 40 minutes with Dave answering questions, and the community might look at that and say, well, but we didn't like the answers, or we didn't think the answers we didn't think you really answered the questions, which was one of the big criticisms of I think the first one, right? So it's the gap of like how you view the action, because the other part of it is, right, like one mess up or instance of poor communication can erase a lot of individual moments of goodwill, right? And that kind of brings us to what happened with AQ last week, with the timeout thing going live, and then having to be turned off, and the statement that, well, it wasn't supposed to go live, we're fixing it, but we are going to address this because this is an exploit. And everyone's like, whoa, this 2 years in, now it's an exploit? What's this, right? Like that erases so much trust and goodwill that was built up, bit by bit, right? It's like 10 steps forward and then it's 20 steps back.
Yeah.
in one post because of that. And that's what's so hard with dealing with the community, right? Because of how we look at communication and how we're affected by it. Like we're really like 1 or 2 big mistakes can really come back to haunt you when the community doesn't forget it, right? So, and then that kind of brings us to like where we are now, right? And the game, sort of having this game breaking moment, right? And the death by 1,000 paper cuts is how did we get there? I don't think it was just Kabam not listening to feedback. I think they were aware of the feedback, but I really get the sense from the interviews and what I'm seeing, especially when it comes to game economy. It seems like the community is always the game economy will always trigger a certain segment of the community, right? But they're really nervous about breaking the game economy, aren't they?
The way, obviously, we spoke to Kabam Frencher. We had that very in-depth and interesting podcast.
And I thought he did great.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels that him being brought on board, or what his kind of what he's up to, is to try and help out to increase the economy for a lot of new players that starting the game out. But I guess this is the difficulty of going like, well, where's the power that he might have? Like, has he been given restrictions as to, and we've talked about this with him, budgets. And that's the thing, whether or not the budgets that he's been given to design the economy for a quest, for a particular story mode. I mean, this might not be his fault. It might be superiors above him saying, look, don't give out X, Y, and Z. We want to keep it like this for whatever reason. But again, like, it could be, and we've talked about the idea of being out of touch, and whether or not that person that's saying to Kabam Frenchie, whoever might be above him, saying, you can't give out this, and therefore, like, because this game changes and evolves, and with stuff like rewards and events, side quests, solo events, RNG, percentages need to evolve with it. If that person is not in touch with or understanding that it needs to be based on the general feedback of everybody else, then that creates a problem for employees. If employees don't know how to scale something accurately, then it becomes difficult. I'm just going back to that point, saying Kabam Frenchie has done something to improve economy for things like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. He said he was going to look at Act 4 and Act 5. So there's some understanding there, but more needs to be done.
Yeah, I think that sort of fear of breaking things with the economy has led to a lot of stagnation with rewards, right? Because if your argument with the game economy and the budget is, well, we can't give the players X, Y, and Z, so we're not going to change, and then you get things that hang around for months and now years, like solo event rewards and uncollected difficulty rewards that have never, they haven't been changed in a very, very long time.
No.
And that just leads to all these like legacy issues that have piled up because the game's 5+ years old now, right?
Yeah.
And there's all these things that's like, all right, well, we don't know how to address it, so we're not going to address it, or we don't want to make a mistake and go too far addressing it, so we won't address it. And then you've got then suddenly you've got every player in the game with like this, 12, 15 points of feedback of like how every game mode is somewhat out of touch with the current, the current game and what the players need. Talking about need for gold and need for battle chips and how am I going to pay for donations? How am I going to stick up my 5-star champions? All those different things, right? That feel from a player standpoint very, very static because they haven't been touched. And now I think that sort of the tidal wave has been unleashed, and we're giving constructive criticism on everything right now. I'm being generous to everyone.
Yeah.
Saying that it's constructive, but you've got this legacy of issues that, backlog of legacy issues. They I think in some regards they want to address, and I am pinning my hopes on the roadmap that they do. How long is it going to take? Right? Like, we're not talking about fixing one thing. We're talking about, like, guys, we need a lot of attention here. And when something like AQ ticket donation sharing takes 2 months, and that's something new, that's something they didn't plan on. How are they going to be able to factor that into a schedule that the players feel good with, that they can pull off, right? Like that's the hard thing, is like, even if they're awake to the issues now, it's not going to be fixed overnight.
No, I mean, for me, I would say if Kabam come out in a week's time with a massive roadmap, and it says in that roadmap, look, we've seen all your points. It's, for example, going to be targeting things like AQ, AW, future content and story arcs, acts, events, arena. I think I said arena twice. Every area, and say what we're going to do in those different areas and how we're going to like scaling things and upping certain rewards and different things and go into minute detail. But say we can get this to you, including like new content and stuff. We can get all of this facilitated by I don't know, if it takes them 2 months to do that specific one thing, November. But what we can do is break it down and say, right, September you'll get this, October you'll get this, September 1st you'll get this, October 1st you get that, October 15th you'll get this, August steps, whatever, you'll get this. But break it down in some, like, not kind of like key dates, because look, you know, developing a game's difficult.
There need to be some deadlines. I think.
But some deadlines,
people will react poorly if it's, hey, here's some stuff we're going to work on. And we read it, oh, that stuff, I like that stuff. That looks good. It's good. See the way it's like, and it's all coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it's not going to go well, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think people would understand if they said, all right, here's 20 things. We're going to try to do 3 in July and 4 of them in August. And then the August update comes like, hey guys, we can only do 3, but we managed to bump up something from October. So that's getting dropped. You know, it's like,
yeah,
as long as we see the progress in the communication, like, people understand that stuff comes up, but there needs to be a feel that it's more than just coming soon and that it's on this unseen roadmap.
Yeah,
because we need something to inspire confidence.
And that's a good point that you kind of latch onto, is like, if anybody from like Kabam is listening, it's a case you can. I mean, I've done it before, like, you know, producing videos. If I've made a mistake, I've made a mistake. Sometimes people hold me to that mistake, like, oh, you made that mistake. And it's like, yeah, I don't care. I'm still challenging myself to do the best each and every day. But if Kabam at least kind of like said, look, this is what we plan. This is these roadmaps updating. I mean, we haven't heard something like a roadmap and having something, you know, written out from Kabam ever. Yes, there was the day video, but it wasn't a case that we kind of that we had something from Kabam on the forum saying, look, well, here's this, what we're doing, here's the future. And just those little kind of like newsletter updates on things and things like that puts people in touch. Sorry, we can't deliver this month, but we're looking through to delivering this. I'm sure you would get about 80% of people, and again, I'm just throwing a random percentage, 80% of people would go, okay, Kabam have noted that, they are working on that. Even as well, like a developer video saying, hey everybody, you know, even that they did that video going like, oh, the best is yet to come. I was like, well, you know, hi guys, you know, we're working on this, we're working on that. I think I think Mike and Adora used to do a video segment saying
they
like,
did, yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but that's the thing. If I can remember little things like that to go, look, well, they did something, then why are they not doing it now? Because it would be well received.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now they're trying to get organized so that they can make a big announcement.
Yeah,
and that's understandable. But going forward, yeah, I think more regular updates are needed. Right? We want to see them out more. We want to see them communicating more on the forums. We don't want to see these big time gaps between issues being raised and official responses.
Right, so now we're going to talk about the boycott. I've probably cut this podcast in a certain way. People say to us, Dan, oh yeah, you guys should have like faces, kind of like we should have the face ups. But people don't understand as well with the internet problem that we've currently got between the communication. Like, we've just had to kind of cut something because Discord had an issue. So unless people wanted us to look like we were having strokes whilst we were kind of recording this from a face perspective, it may not work.
My face is just frozen for 5 minutes.
Yeah, so it's like
no fun.
Yeah, you don't want it. Right, so the boycott and how this leads into it. So a lot of stuff that we've mentioned does kind of factor into where this boycott has happened, and
right,
we do want to re-emphasize that we got friends that are in the boycott. We got friends that are against the boycott. So it's difficult to kind of like present something. We want to present this as fairly as possible.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, there's that stuff within it like, well, is some of the feedback being talked about within the general feedback loop that Kabam has seen? Is this something that's different to it? Is it something that is for some but not for others based on where they're at in the game, or you know, from an alliance perspective, prestige perspective, and what they currently feel? So there's a lot to kind of take into consideration when talking about this. We've both talked to 2 different people. I know, Dan, you've been actively in the room online that has been talking about stuff like this. So it's very varied, isn't it?
it is, and I think my initial impression of it was sort of all these people had come together, and person A's got someone's got an issue with RNG, someone else has an issue with book 2, someone else wants arena bots fixed, and someone else is upset about champion nerfs. And I think to some degree that that was somewhat true, especially getting involved. All be boiled down to the idea of communication, and to me that does make sense, because I think if you look at the issues in the game, whether you have an issue with roster acquisition, sig stones, RNG, whatever it is, the 10 or 12 things that we all might list, like those are all just symptomatic of the issue of communication that we've been talking about the whole podcast, right?
Yeah.
Like communication needs to be improved. That's what we need to cure, and if we can do that, there's probably a way to alleviate all the negative symptoms that individual people are feeling, and some of us are feeling some of these symptoms more than others. So I keep seeing it coming down to the talk of communication, and it seems to be that the solution that's being proposed by the leaders of the boycott is some sort of players union, player council that will have direct interactions with Kabam and be able to give them direct feedback on how the players are feeling and the state of the game. I don't know if that sounds like anything you're currently aware of in the game or not.
Yeah, I've put up on screen on the YouTube video portion of this what is the mission statement, what the boycott is looking to achieve. Obviously, trying to create that, as I say, communication is the big key word. Whether or not a games developer would want to give that level of feedback, I mean, to kind of fill a lot of you in, like being in the CCP, do you think that we've got a massive pool of change, and you can view the CCP, you can view anybody within it as you like, but you only really are just kind of like guessing a lot of the time. We don't have a massive say of the way that the game is going to change. We can put our thought process across, and obviously people have it's very self-evident with that Alliance ticket incident.
Oh, sure.
When people complained about what people picked up from the fantastic event back in November. We did our bit, but the community did their bit to do the level of feedback. And you're all doing it now when it comes to the general feedback loop. So it's
right.
It's talking about
it's tough. And I hope I'm not coming off as defensive over this, and I certainly don't want to, because I think getting more feedback to Kabam is good, and it certainly wouldn't affect me and my ability to get issues to Kabam through the content creator program or anyone else. If this players union thing did end up happening, I don't think that would impact any of it. I'm certainly not nervous about that, but I do think there's a little bit of a level of naivete about what's going on in the content creator program as far as feedback, and B, how much anyone can actually influence a developer. Even if you make a good point, you can get an answer like, oh, well, yeah, we thought about that, but you can't because of XYZ. It's like, oh, okay, I get some context now.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to change a lot of things that go on in World of Tanks, but are Wargaming going to listen to me? No, they even stopped listening to their what referred to be content contributor program years and years ago. And that game's been running, I think, nearly 10 years. So it's okay. Some games developers will listen, others not. And Kabam, we've established this. Kabam have got a lot of way to go when it comes to communication. But one thing I want to bring up is something that I'm going to put on screen at the moment for those that are watching on YouTube, and you can go and check this out on my Twitter, on Dan's Twitter. And this is something that was an MCOC survey, May 2020, which, you know, I've got, like I said, I've got on screen on the YouTube video, but obviously you have to go to Twitter to find this on Dan's or mine. This was created by people within the CCP, and the thing that I said to Dan off the podcast was, why does it take people from CCP to create something which Kabam would have theoretically been best off doing themselves, and why have they not considered this? Because this is actually a fantastic piece of info, saying ranking your favorite game modes right the way through to talking about your prestige and where you're currently at, and obviously things like AQ maps, and not to mention your outlets of communication where you go to, which is important to kind of say that, right, if you avoid the forums and you haven't put any of the information, say that you may be in a boycott and you haven't given that information to Kabam, then what are the other areas that you'd likely go to voice your opinion, or as well see info and gain advice from? Which I thought was pretty cool that they've
I'm interested in seeing what the results are. We're getting a good response from it, but of course it's influenced a lot by the people that we can get to spread the survey, right? Like something in game that could be blasted out to hundreds of thousands of people and get a much wider level of player feedback would be a lot more valuable. And I think what we're just trying to do is maybe just challenge some of our own assumptions and get more feedback from players, so that can influence our feedback that we can give to Kabam to hopefully help work through some of the issues that the game's having in those times where we are asked to give feedback. So I don't know, the players union thing is an interesting idea. There's of course a lot of questions. Well, who would be on such a thing? What role would they play? Is Kabam going to require an NDA? Yeah, and I don't see any way that they do it without an NDA. Yeah, and if that's a breaking point for the people of the boycott, I don't see any positive momentum being gained if that's going to be the sticking point.
Yeah, because that's looking at it going, right, well, if the if say an alliance that is formed that, I don't know, let's just throw it out there, Turkish based, and then an alliance that's maybe American based, then both there's members from each individual alliances that have been put together to create this kind of council, so to speak, then what you're doing is you're still creating a them and us scenario. And like this is the same problem with the CCP that we've had to, and I'm not going to go too into it because, it just, like on Twitter, to kind of like a lot of the stuff that I've been added into, some of the things that have been said about, members of the CCP, things that aren't factual.
Right.
I've obviously, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to mention it. I'm not going to out anybody in particular, and I'm not going to take offense to it. I've got better things to do with my time. But that's another thing. It's like, well, people are going to view like a them and us scenario, then they're going to view a them and us scenario as well. Games have content contributor programs. If you don't like that, then speak to the entire gaming developing sector. They will always have content contributors. They have content contributors for Valorant, for Fortnite. They have creator codes for Fortnite. They've got new editions. They've got things built for certain big streamers. It happens. It's going to happen. So look, don't look at a them and us scenario.
Right, and it's just tough when you see so many great people in the program going to bat for the community time and again in the program. It's not just about testing champs, and no, we are not paid by Kabam. We keep having to say this.
Yeah, I mean, I've still got a mortgage to pay. Unless those people that are going to say we are paid could actually come round and put a load of money in my PayPal and get my mortgage paid, then it's not going to happen. I'm going to have to work my butt off like anybody else to get what they've got.
And I think the other part is the NDA, right? And I think that gets criticized a lot. And it's like, well, why is there an NDA, right? Well, the reason why there's an NDA is because BAM sometimes shows us things that are not ready to be shown to the gaming, the public of the game, right? The public audience for the game. And sometimes that's because they want feedback and they might change something, right? So let's, I'm not going to give any specific examples. Like, let's just talk through the scenario. Kabam presents, example A to the content creator program. Says, we're going to do A. And we look at it and we were like, guys, if you do A, that's going to really upset everyone. Here's how you should tweak it. You should do it like this. And that becomes B. And B is what gets launched in the game. The community never knows about A. If the community found out about A, would the story be, wow, thanks for going to bat for us, CCP. B is a lot better than A. Good job. And good job, Kabam, for listening to that feedback. Or would it be, holy crap, can you believe idea A?
Yeah.
Like, how could they have been so out of touch, blah, blah, blah. It's like, they can't win that, right? He's like, we want them to listen, but if, without the NDA and people start talking about these ideas, then they just get crushed that way. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of tough.
Yeah, this
is because a lot of the stuff in the boycott is talking about longer timelines, and we've talked about that in the CCP too. If you want longer timeline behind the scenes so you can influence things, the NDA becomes more important, not less.
Yeah. It's a difficult problem to have. Look, I will just say, are we part of the problem with being in the CCP and having a CCP created? Maybe, especially with a lot of those people in the boycott. Like I said, we are friends with them, but they may look at us in the kind of way of going, look, well, some of the views that they have differs from where we are in the game. And look, I totally understand that. That's up for
that's fair.
That's up for Kabam to create some kind of level of communication. The only way that you do that is not to kind of go, right, well, what we'll do is we'll set up 3, 4, 5 different councils. Is a case of going, right, well, we're just going to straight up communicate with everybody at one given time, which, let's face it, would it be good? Would it be bad? I don't really know. You wouldn't get a lot of extra information, which maybe they'll look to content contributors to promote the game and the way that obviously any game operates. It's not just a case of going about Kabam, the developer, Marvel Contest of Champions of the game. It's done elsewhere. If it's a case that they allowed for a CCP to be more prevalent and as well a player base having more communication, then maybe Marvel Future Fight wouldn't be dying on its ass right now. Same thing with Marvel Battle Lines. If they had done more work to then get this game shipped out, but the game is dead. So it's a difficult one, isn't it?
Like I was saying, I think there's enough people that are willing to wait on the roadmap. And if it's a quality roadmap, that's going to satisfy a lot of people. And then you've got July 4th. And if that's very tempting for the spenders in the game, then they can just ride it out, right? Because this players union thing would be a lot of work for Kabam, right?
Yeah.
So they would have to see the value in it, right? Because if Kabam thinks they can solve the logout / non-spending issue in another way, they're going to try to do that, right? So I don't know, that's kind of my thought on it. I think I appreciate the motivations of people trying to make the game better, because I do think they are genuine.
Yeah.
I just think it's really tough what they're pitching.
Yeah, I think it would be a case that if this had started, I'm not giving advice for this, but if this has maybe started, because a lot of things are based on historical things, and it's like you're saying, the legacy side of things, rather than it being a case that the chance is going to be given as of what's going to happen next week. It's a case that they don't know. We don't even know. Nobody knows yet. Only Kabam knows what they are going to answer next week. And is any of the things that have been mentioned in the boycott present in the general feedback loop for Kabam to see, number one, and number two, act on? Because if it's not there, they don't know about it. They may have already gone, right, well, they may be ready to go, look, we're going to answer against all this stuff. And then they're like, right, we may have a boycott on our hands. And we now know of several other things. But then that's the difficulty of going, if this was in some sort of communication loop in a council, would it be a case that now we've got feedback in the state of the general feedback loop on the forums, the council are giving feedback, the CCP are giving feedback, the players are going to Twitter, they're going to live streams, they're going to every different other area. So we've got 6 areas to gather feedback loops from. So it's not centralized. It's all over the place.
I mean, but I don't think there's a way to solve that, right? Like there's always going to be the forums and Reddit, and there's this entire community over in Facebook that never gets talked about.
Yeah.
There's always going to be all these different places for feedback to be given, but in some ways that's very one way. And what I think everyone wants is for more two-way conversations, right? To be able to give feedback, to get Kabam to answer, to get some greater understanding about why things are the way they are, why they're moving at the current speed, all those kind of things. So it doesn't feel like it's just Kabam posting release notes and saying this is what it is, and us saying, I don't like this, change it, and no one's actually talking to each other. Like that's the core issue at the end of the day, is just how do we have more conversations with one another, so it's not an us versus them, that that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, so I think we've all come to the understanding that yes, there's an evolution of game problems, but the way that communication is done in future is something that if Kabam want to have that a good relationship with the player base, which could have these open-ended possibilities with things like forms, with dialogue as roadmaps, as maybe speaking to summoners directly without need for kind of speaking to the CCP. And by the way, not everything does go past the CCP. There are things that Kabam will just go out and just do themselves. Roadmaps, conversations, live streams and communications and question and answers. Those are all areas of communication that if Kabam did and will do in the future, will it impact positively? Obviously it would do, because that's basically what we want to see, whether or not you're in the boycott or out of the boycott.
Right, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, even for the people in the boycott, the goal is not to have a boycott. The goal is to improve the game. So hopefully, no matter what, there's like that, and that's really the message, right? Like even the people who aren't boycotting right now aren't saying we're not boycotting because everything's fine.
Yeah. Because like the way that a lot of people, the way this has come about, you can call it a shamcot, you can call it what a boycott. What people are talking at, these are just passionate players. They're all incredibly passionate about this game.
Yeah.
Because they want to see it succeed. I, Dan, as everybody that's listening, have invested time and money into the game. I don't think anybody's voice should be belittled, because if that was the case, then I don't want to kind of ruffle anyone's jimmies, but I just want to kind of make the point of like, you always have to have those that will be negative to the game, positive towards the game, or kind of critical about the game, but effectively we still play the game. We're still passionate about the game. Like I can say whatever I want about the game. But I can say something like, oh, Kabam should be doing this, doing that. But I'm still going to play the game. I still love the game. I just want to be playing it in 5 years. And I feel that whatever happens in the next couple of weeks is going to be paramount to that. And, we wish Kabam all the best.
We do. And I hope they know there's a lot riding on this roadmap.
Yeah.
I feel like they do.
Yeah.
I genuinely feel like they do, but make no mistake, it's going to be a big moment when that sucker hits the forums.
Yeah. They have given, as we've talked about in the last couple of podcasts, is that they've done something to kind of give us slight reassurance without actually kind of going into great detail. Kabam Mike obviously said that the idea behind trash 6 stars or trash champions may be something that in the future is not going to be a key element. Obviously, with responding on Twitter about the Moon Knight thing, and also the idea that they're going to change the champion boss fight of 6.2.6. So
yeah,
that was,
and those are 2 interesting ones, right? Because that is both of those are examples of Kabam going against their previous mode of communicating only when something is 100% set in stone.
Yeah.
Right? Because it does raise expectations when you say, yeah, we're going to look at 6-star trash champions and we're going to take a look at the champion fight. Because then you're expected to do something.
Yeah.
And they normally don't like to set themselves up for that, which in some ways I get, right? Because what if you take a look and decide you're not going to do anything? You have to be able to explain that. So sometimes sometimes it's better to not say anything, but I think they got too much in the mode of like, we're not going to promise anything. We're not going to give updates. We don't want to set expectations. And they just ran into problems because of that. So I'm hoping that they're going to find a happy medium ground.
Yeah. I think that's a good point to end on. When it comes to the podcast,
a little bit of hope, right, Rich?
Yeah, a little bit of hope, because and something I did say in the last podcast when I ended it is that I hope we don't have to have a. And this hasn't been a negative podcast. It's been a constructive one. But we want to talk, I think next week, we want to see that roadmap in place. We also want to be at the end of the week on Sunday talking about episode 20. Because, hey, that's the thing, innit? We're going to, like, number 20 for 2020 could be a case that's going to be a positive one to talk about all the lovely things that are going to happen in the rest of the year. But, we wait on bated breath on that. Dan, what are you up to next week?
Well, next week for me, it's really about waiting for the update and the event quest to drop, because I've done pretty much everything I can do in the game right now. So I don't really know. I think I'm going to try to do a breakdown of the side quest as soon as I get that. And other than that, I really want to follow the news of the boycott and see how Kabam's communicating, see if we get the roadmap, and just watch the situation as it evolves.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing with me. I think the next 2 days are going to be a very just kind of stagnant one for what I'm going to do. I think the new event kicks in on Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday I'll probably have a load of content for that. But I think Monday news, Tuesday, don't really know. Probably the last of the rifts, getting that done.
Yep.
So,
yeah, a couple more rifts. One more awakening gem maybe.
Nice. Right, and that has been the episode. Make sure to follow us on all the things like SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, the iTunes podcast. We'll see you next week, and we hope for the best. Goodbye, everybody.